Good evening, everyone. Oh, there's a problem here. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, there we go. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of the live stream where I'm going to attempt to answer questions that you have put to me on the YouTube channel and on Discord. And it's about me. So you can throw me any question during the live stream as well. I'll try and read out as many as I can. So I want to say thank you so much to Killer for collating all of these questions, putting them in the right order, grouping them by topic, which was wonderful, so we can have a bit of structure to this. So this, as I said, this is a special 180,000 subscriber. So we're just below 180,000 subscribers, but we should hit it probably tonight or tomorrow. So I just wanted to do a special edition where you can ask me questions and I'll try and answer as many as I can. So without further ado, let's jump into this. So the first one I have here, unfortunately I can't put it into a PowerPoint presentation. I didn't have enough time, but I'll just read out the questions. You can listen and I'll respond. Cavill, thank you so much for that super chat. Thank you so much. Hi you. Hey you to you too. So let's start off with Andrew Morehouse's question. He says, Max, do you have a day job besides YouTube? So this is a common question I get. It's been going on for some time. So I've been doing YouTube full time for a number of years now. I've been very fortunate and really lucky because of what I keep saying this, that I jumped in at the right time. I was very lucky. And YouTube, if you want to be successful with YouTube, it requires a lot of luck. Just to go off on a tangent for a moment, many people ask me, how can I be successful on YouTube? How can I make a living off it? It's possible, but you need to be consistent and you need to be putting out content that's interesting for you. So if you decide, okay, I just want to make money out of this, it's going to be very difficult. But if you have a passion and you upload videos based on your passion, it doesn't have to be politics, it can be anything, and you're consistent with those videos, you'll be able to build up a large number of subscribers pretty quickly, and then at a certain stage you'll be able to monetize it. And I think so the requirement is 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of content. So it takes a while to get up to that stage, but then once you're at that stage, you can start to make a little bit of money, and then it gradually increases over time. I'm very lucky because I jumped in at the right time. It was about Brexit, so I started talking about Brexit. I'll go into a bit more detail about that in some later questions. But I used to do business English courses here in Italy, and general conversation with people, Italians who wanted to improve their English. So that's what I used to do. But now YouTube takes up all of my time, so I'm doing it full time. It's possible. It takes a long time to get to that stage. It can take a number of years. I've said before, I'm very fortunate. So if there are smaller channels, I try and reach out to them. Maybe we can do a video together or a live stream together. I did a lot of those in the past. I want to start doing those again to have a guest on. We can chat about something, especially if it's a smaller channel, so I can send some people their way. It's a great way to help other channels improve their numbers. Okay, so as I said, I'm very lucky. I'm able to do this full time, and I know not many people are able to do that. But keep at it. Keep putting out content. Be as consistent as possible. If it's one video a day, make sure you do one video a day. If it's two, do it. Even if it's like just 3 videos a week or something like that. Try and be as consistent as you can, because that's what the YouTube algorithm needs. Magic, great to see you on the stream. Thank you so much for that super chat. New Tricon or finally rescued from the airport. Okay, yeah, I better answer that. Thanks, Magic. So, what was it, 2 years ago? The time flies. 2 years ago, I visited London and I took a Tricon with me. But unfortunately, on the way out, I was in the airport in Luton, I think, or was it Stans? No, I think it was Luton Airport. I was leaving and I had put down I think the flight was late or something, and I was sitting down waiting, and I put the hat down beside me, And then I saw there was a call for the gate, so I grabbed my bag and ran, and then I'd gone through the gate, and then I realized the hat. So I actually had put in a request while I was waiting on the plane to the airport, saying, please, if you find this hat, can you put it aside, or please send it to me. I'll give you the money if you can ship it over. And then I got no response. So very kind people on the channel sent me this wonderful hat, and I try and I wear it as often as possible. Made by one of the son of one of the people on Discord. So I want to say thanks. Sorry, Gatwick. It was Gatwick, not Luton. Sorry, my mind is going. So yes, it was Gatwick Airport. Don't know why I said Luton. Anyway, thanks for that, Magic. So this is a new hat. Yes, I have this about over a year now, I think. Stu, thank you so much for that comment. Hey, Max, congrats on 180,000. You need to get No Justice on. She's great, and just like you, and convince me to go green instead of yellow. Well, no Liberal Democrats for you. So we had her on the Sunday roast, so I can try and get her on this channel as well. There's another channel that people should be following. Really, really good content. Amazing. Pulling the Tories apart and challenging Labour on a number of issues. So if you're not already a subscriber to No Justice, do check her out and subscribe. So I will see about having her on. And these, I think those live streams were very popular when I had people on. So we can do something like that in the future. So this is once again, Andrew had asked this question. What particularly made you choose Max Robespierre as the channel name? So I mentioned this many moons ago. I like the idea. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I like the idea of the incorruptible. So a nickname for Robespierre was the incorruptible. And I think for me, I've mentioned it a number of times on the channel that we need to get money out of politics. Money has a corrupting influence in politics, and if we can get that out, we can have a more democratic process. We can have political parties. I said a number of times in videos that they should be publicly funded. The fact that the Conservatives receive a huge amount of money from private donors, and then what happens? They get PPE contracts and stuff like that. That's a huge problem. So if we can get money out of politics, politicians will be looking after their constituents and not looking after their donors. Now, people will say, well, what about the Labour Party and the unions? Well, when the unions give money to the Labour Party, it's different because they're doing it on behalf of workers. So workers benefit, not so much the trade unions benefit. Maybe the trade unions benefit in ways that legislation will be put in place. But, there's a big difference between someone like Frank Hester giving £10 million to the Tories and, Unison giving money to the Labour Party. Do Unison? I know the RMT don't, but maybe, Unison do. Anyway, another question from Andrew, and then we'll move on to Joseph's. When and why did you move there? And what part of Italy do you live in? If it isn't giving away too much. No, it's not. So I live in the northeast. I live about 30 kilometers, about 25 miles from Venice. I've been to Venice a number of times. It's a bit of a pain in the backside to get to Venice. You live in the area, but you don't visit it very often. A beautiful city. If you haven't seen Venice, please, before you die, it's a place you have to visit. And it's a bit better now than it was in the past. They've put some restrictions on the number of tourists coming in. So, in the summer, it was a disaster to visit because it was so full of people. So why did I move here? Well, Mrs. Max and I were friends on the internet many moons ago, and she suggested, hey, why don't you come over here on holiday? So I eventually said, yeah, sure. I came over and we hit it off, and then we sort of bounced back and forth between Dublin and Venice, not Venice itself, but outside Venice. And then I remained here because I love the food and pizza in particular. And then I was doing some teaching work, and then eventually YouTube, and Brexit happened. Aidan, thank you so much for that super chat, Aidan. Stormont DUP Education Minister rejects evolution. God. That's the DUP are not big fans of the dinosaurs. They believe the devil planted the bones to test their religion, to test their faith. Sorry. Thanks for that, Aidan. But it's an education minister who rejects evolution. It shouldn't be allowed. Of course, the education minister is not going to be teaching the religion, the subjects, but it's nuts. Only the DUP could be capable of something like that. Okay, let's move on to our next question, which is from Joseph. Joseph OM says, what's the story behind your channel picture and your channel name? So I sort of mentioned that before. So the channel picture, so I had a number of different pictures. So I had the one with the Thug Life glasses. That was the first one I went with. Then I got somebody to do a little cartoon figure, and we had bounced ideas off each other for a bit. So that was a commission. I got somebody to do that for me. He was like, why don't you do a cartoon figure of Robespierre? And what can we include in it? Well, what about the guillotine and then maybe something else? And we had him hold a piece of cake. So, let them eat cake, which isn't exactly what happened. But anyway, so we went with that. I thought it was quite cute and people liked it. So I bounce between the full image of him next to the guillotine and or just the image with the sunglasses, and then the channel itself. Once again I said I like the idea of the incorruptible. I don't believe in chopping off people's heads. No, that's beyond the pale for me. I think we should convince people with rhetoric or with arguments, but not brute force. We can imagine some people may deserve it, of course, but somebody's asking, is that in the background? Let me see if I can. I need to move some stuff around off my screen so you can see a little bit better this room. Do you see the staff? So we had in our garden, we had to cut down a tree. I'll just tell you a quick story about this. We had to cut down a tree because it was rotten and it was about to fall and it was waiting for the next storm. So we had to call somebody to cut it down. They chopped it up and then they left some branches behind, and I started cutting them up myself. And I found this piece that looks exactly like what? Gandalf's staff. You shall not pass. So I cut off the bottom part and it looks exactly like that. So that's why it's hanging, or it's not hanging, but it's propped against the wall there. You can see Sir Ron Ventie's hat is behind me as well. Mandalorian helmet. We also have Darth Vader's helmet. I don't know if you can see anything really behind there. No. Oh, I'm in the way. There's a lava lamp, and then there's a bottle of whiskey. And I received bottles of whiskey from a very kind person. I'm not going to name any names, but they know who I'm talking about from time to time, especially at Christmas, and it's wonderful. Although I can't drink a lot of whiskey, I've discovered that if I drink more than 2 or 3 glasses, I start to feel really bad. So it could be a liver problem. I don't know, but I have to be very careful about drinking. So, Brad, thank you so much for that super chat. Have you tried interviewing Jacob Rees-Mogg? Use your use of an 18th century name and portrait might be good bait for him. Said Brad. Yeah. So it's actually interesting because there was not Jacob Rees-Mogg, unfortunately, but David Frost, Lord Frost. Remember Lord Frost? So he was at Policy Exchange some years ago, and he was answering questions, and I managed to get online. Obviously, I wasn't in the studio, but I got online and I got into a position where I could ask questions, and I put forward a question to David Frost, but they never asked my question. I think it was maybe too embarrassing. I'm trying to remember what the question was because it was about 2 or 3 years ago now, but it was something like, can you actually come up with a Brexit benefit? Something quite simple, but they wouldn't put that question to him. So they were filtering the questions. So that was a bit disappointing. But that's as close as I got to any real Tory. I should join Steve Bray, in Parliament Square and ask some questions. Thanks so much, Brad. Alistair, great to see you on the stream. Thank you so much once again for your super chats and this one tonight. Hi Max, congrats on hitting 180,000. I really like to thank you on putting videos out about Scotland. Indy one of a few of the things that and thanks again, much appreciated, big time. Thank you so much, Alistair, very kind of you. I haven't been talking enough about Scotland. I haven't been talking enough about independence, and this is maybe where I could reach out to Indy Truck Davy, for example, and get him on a live stream. And like I think we did it many moons ago, so we could try and do something like that again. That'd be great to have on, so because it's good to refer to somebody who knows a lot more than I do. I know very little about these things, so it's good to have somebody who knows, a bit like the European Convention on Human Rights, where I spoke to Alan Drake about that. So it would be good to have somebody else on, maybe not an interview, but even just a live stream together, and we could respond to some things. All hail the lamp. Well said, Magic. So let's move on to the next question. This one is from Killer. Is Dylan doing an appearance as co-host tonight? Unfortunately not, but I may bring Dylan on sometime later. Maybe not tonight, but another time. So you get to see who Dylan is. Dylan is my pet corgi. I know the irony. It's a bit ironic. Me, a Republican, having a corgi. Actually have more than one, but and they're all adopted, of course. We didn't buy any of them, but they're adopted. So Dylan is a corgi. He only has one eye. He was born with one eye, but he's able to catch a ball without any problems. He's bigger than a normal size, so I may actually do a video, maybe a short or something, so you get to see Dylan. But it's he's much bigger. He's 18 kilos. So I'm not sure how much is that in pounds. It's like 25 pounds or something like that. He's huge for a corgi. Okay, corgis are small, but for corgis he's pretty big, and he's not fat. He's very, very strong, very muscly. So it's all muscle. He's not he's like Mike Tyson. Anyway, but not aggressive. They're very, very, very very quiet dogs. 2.2 pounds is 1 kilo. Yeah, so multiply 18 by 2.2. He's too big. He needs to go on the diet. Anyway, Perry Mason has a question for me. What's your educational background, and also how much research time do you put into your average video? Okay, so my educational background is IT. So I qualified in computer science, and then I worked in a number of companies. I better not name the names, but I worked for a number of companies in Dublin back in the late 1990s and early 2000s before I moved to Italy. But I've forgotten all of it. Things have moved on so much. This was before smartphones. I remember the tablet PC when it first came out. It was Microsoft's tablet PC. It was like a big iPad. It was basically a computer screen it was like a laptop basically flipped over, but it was that I remember seeing that was back in 2001, I think. And then I remember some people asked me, like, where were you? Do you remember 9/11? And I remember I was in a company, and I remember receiving an email from a guy who normally sent jokes. And I opened the email and I saw the Twin Towers on fire. I was like, what's the joke here? Like, I always received jokes from this guy, and then he sent an email to everyone about the Twin Towers, and I was like, what the hell is that? So I jumped on the BBC website, and I remember the website was running really, really slowly because so many people were logging on. And then, we spent the whole day in the meeting room watching Sky News. Anyway, let's move on. How long do you do research? So my routine changes all the time, but my routine normally is this. I get up at about 8:30 in the morning, and then I go through, okay, what's big in the news at the moment? So something maybe has dropped about from Sky News, or something from the BBC, or something from GB News. And I do a few videos in the morning, and then in the afternoon I do something else. I do another one for the evening. So if you don't know, I do 4 videos a day. I used to do 3, but I'm getting quite good at it, or not good, but quick at it. So I've been able to put out a bit more content, and then YouTube likes you to put out more content. Other people they're doing just 2 videos a day, and they're getting a lot more views. But there's so many things to talk about that I think I need to talk about this. I need to respond to this. And my favorite videos are the ones that are really long. They're like 11 minutes. Or I remember I did a video which was like 20 minutes, and I received a note from the moderators going, 20 minutes? Are you sure? Just I keep rambling, of course, when I respond to something that Jacob Rees-Mogg or Ben Habib or someone like that has said. I think it's, I like doing it. I like responding to these people. I like calling them out. But I also think it's necessary because nobody else is really doing it. Because what's frustrating is sometimes you see like people from GB News invited onto Sky News. People from GB News invited onto the BBC, but never the other way around. When was the last time you saw a BBC journalist on GB News? Why does it always go one way? So I think it's important to call out GB News or Talk TV to expose them. I like doing it because I think it's quite easy because they just talk absolute shite. But it's easy to respond to that. 20 minutes for an Irishman. Very quiet. No comment. Okay, then we have a question from Wilderness who says, "Are you a football fan or do you enjoy any other sport?" No, I've never really been into football. And when you come to Italy, that's practically impossible to. They always ask, "What's your favorite football team? Is it Inter? Is it Milan? Is it Juventus?" And it's like, "No, I don't really like football." What? What's wrong with you? Are you an alien? So, sport. I don't know. I like to play tennis, but I don't get really much of a chance to do it. I'm more interested in taking part in this. My hat is coming off. I prefer to take part in a sport like tennis or something like that. Maybe basketball, bounce the ball about, as opposed to being a spectator. So I'm not much of a spectator. Cavan Lad, thank you for that peach. Very nice peach. Thank you so much for that. So when it comes to sport, yeah, I'm not a big fan of sports. So the next question from Killer: will you ever consider playing again for Longford Slashers? Longford Slashers being a football team, of course. No, not again. No, it was a bad experience, so I won't go there again. Okay, let's move on to our next topic, which is political stuff. So from Rich79, he says, how much of a toll on your sanity has covering British politics taken? I used to have hair, so I don't know if that answers your question. I just want to respond to another question. Do you know the YouTube channel called TLDR News? Yes, I actually met with the guys from TLDR. There was a YouTube event about 2 years ago that I attended. That was really interesting, and I met some very interesting YouTubers there. Very, very big ones. And TLDR was there. So I got a chance to talk to a couple of the guys from that. And they had actually said, yeah, we watched some of your content. I was like, wow. Because, it's, why is the hat doing this? Because sometimes you don't, when you're doing stuff like this, and I don't live in London, so I don't get to meet many of these people. So it's difficult to know whether people know about you. My friend Alex from the Sunday Roast, he told me that he was at a meeting with people, and my name came up a couple of times. So people were like, "Oh, is Max coming, or is Max here?" And I was like, "Oh, that's really nice," because I don't know if other YouTubers watch the stuff, because you don't really get a lot of feedback from other people, and YouTube doesn't tell you if these people watch your channel or not. But TLDR is wonderful. They do really good content, and it's very neutral. So it's not, there's very little bias or any bias at all in it. And they're very, very good explainer videos, like what is the EU, what is Brexit, all of these things. Hair is overrated, yes. Peter, thank you so much for that super chat. Is there a leaderboard for Fool of the Week? That's a very good question. Should do a Fool of the Year or a rundown of the worst fools of the year. I would. So if I was cornered and I had to choose maybe the top 5, I would say Mike Graham would have to be one of them. Would have to be in the top 5. The concrete farmer. Andrea Jenkins is another one. What's her name? Boris Johnson's girlfriend. Nadine Dorris, yes, Nadine Dorris would be one. Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, is another. And then some of the sort of random Brexiteers like Mark Francois would have to make it as well. And Farage, of course, it would be although Farage doesn't make Fool of the Week very much because he's not foolish. He's a charlatan, but he doesn't really trip up very often. He's very good at avoiding situations that embarrass him, apart from if it's a milkshake or something. But then it's very difficult to avoid a milkshake. Stu, once again, thank you so much, Stu. You should have plugged Mrs. Max's channel for Dylan. Yes, so maybe the moderators will post a link to. I can't post links here for some reason, but Mrs. Max's channel called Corgis and Friends. So if you want to check that out with some cute videos on that with corgis, no political stuff, just cute woofers and dogs. Sorry, let me come back to this. How much of a toll has it taken on your sanity has covering British politics taken? Maybe some people think I get very irate and very stressed, but this is something I'm passionate about. So if you're passionate about something, you will get angry, but it won't. But you're able to vent. You're able to let it all, let the steam off, and then go and do something else. So maybe no hair. Maybe why maybe an example of how it's taking a toll. But generally, if I'm passionate about these things. I'm very interested in these things. So while I am angry when I see politicians running roughshod over Parliament, or when I see putting through policies that harm the most vulnerable in society, that has to be called out. But I think if we're talking about it, then we're having an impact. I'm not expecting to change anything or change people's minds, but I think if the videos are getting views and if people are watching them, and I've actually heard from some politicians that they've watched some of the videos. So, for example, one politician actually watched the video and then complained to me about it. I had to take it down. But if people are watching it, it means maybe it's not changing everyone's mind, but it's changing perhaps some people's minds, and that's the goal here. Responding to things, putting out another message, a contrary message, and then people listening. Next question is from Captain Ace Welt. Do you ever get depressed listening to the right-wing talking points over and over again? Not so much depressed, but a bit frustrated, because when people like Jacob, not so much Jacob Rees-Mogg, but what's his name? Well, Julie Hartley-Brewer today. She's been speaking to people both online and in the studio for years about immigration, about asylum seekers, and most reasonable people. And I hope I'm including myself in that. Or maybe I'm not a reasonable person. That's up to you guys to decide. But if I have a position, and somebody presents this, a contrary to that position, and I'm proven wrong. Like if somebody told me, look, asylum seekers can claim this. If I put out something like, I believe asylum seekers can claim this, and somebody actually showed me the evidence that that's not true, then I would drop that position. I would stop believing that. I would start pushing that point. But what the right-wing commentators, they know, or they're thick, I don't know which it is, but I have a feeling they know what they're saying is untrue, but they know that it makes people angry, and it drives traffic to Talk TV or GB News, or it gets a clip on YouTube, and it makes them famous. So they will continue to push these lines, this rhetoric, knowing that it's untrue. This idea that, well, people crossing the channel are illegal. Well, we know that they're not illegal for two reasons. First of all, it's not illegal to cross the channel and claim asylum. And second, if they were doing something illegal, then they would be arrested. Why are they not being arrested? Unfortunately, mainstream media journalists don't ask these questions, don't say to people, well, if these people are illegal, then why aren't they being arrested? Obviously, they're not being arrested because they haven't done anything illegal. And it's not illegal to claim asylum by crossing the channel. That's the reality. Whether you like it or not is another thing. We can argue about whether it should be illegal or not, but the reality is it's not illegal. Once again, if it was illegal, then wouldn't people be arrested? And nobody's asking that question. So these things can be a bit frustrating. it's not depressing, it's just frustrating because you keep hearing the same thing over and over. But I think if we keep responding to it, eventually, maybe not the person who's pushing this, like Julie Hartley Brewer or Ben Habib or someone like that, but the people listening will go, oh, okay, but I thought it was illegal. I thought they were breaking the law, but obviously they're not breaking the law. So maybe we can plant a little seed in the mind of the viewer, not so much of the person pushing the point. Because if they're not challenged, then people will think it's just, well, that's normal. That's how things are. I don't want to miss our other super chat. We have one from Brad. Thank you so much, Brad. Sorry, there was a bit of a delay here. Brad says, Carrie Johnson by name, Carrie Johnson by nature. That's very mean, but it's true. Oh my goodness. Thanks so much, Brad. Casper, thank you so much for that comment. We also have one from Alistair, who says 18 months as a subscriber, as a member. Well, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for your 18 months of support. 180,000. We have the numbers there. Wow, a year and a half, time flies. It certainly does. Thank you so much once again, Alistair, my friend in Scotland. Okay, we have another question from, let me see, Rachel. Rachel says, what makes you get up in the morning and say, I'm going to be a politics YouTuber, or did you fall into it by accident? So I keep saying this, that it was luck. A lot of it was luck. So what happened was, I wanted to start responding to things on YouTube or politics. And I had started out on philosophy. So I haven't studied philosophy, but I'm interested in philosophy. And I had started out with the idea, well, I'll make some response videos to philosophy videos. Give my opinion on that. Those videos didn't do very well. And then what happened was I discovered James O'Brien. And James O'Brien was talking about Brexit in a way that nobody else was talking about Brexit. So when you do some research on Brexit on the internet, on YouTube, you just get stuff like Nigel Farage says this, Nigel Farage says that, Nigel Farage in the House of Commons, in the European Parliament, Nigel Farage, blah, blah, blah. And there was no real pushback. Like Nigel Farage owns this person, or Nigel Farage defeats this expert, or or Boris Johnson defeats this expert, or Boris Johnson this. So there was no one really talking about the other side. And I discovered James O'Brien was talking about the other side. I actually found him by accident. It was like, oh, James O'Brien on Brexit. I was like, okay, here's another Brexiteer. And I listened to him. I was like, wait a minute, this guy is actually telling the truth. He's not promoting Brexit. Then I started to listen to another few videos. And then what I did was, I said, look, what I'll do is, I'll do like with the philosophy videos, I'll take the clip and then I'll respond to it. And what happened was people would say, well, actually, we'd like to hear more of what you have to say. So I started doing some more videos where I wouldn't actually be responding to what James O'Brien was saying, but I'd add in I just put up my own content. That had a mixed result. Some people liked it, some people didn't. So then I went back to responding to stuff, and those videos did quite well. I'm very lucky because of the format. It's easy for me, and I'm very comfortable with this format where I allow either someone to speak for a few moments and then I respond to it, or I allow someone to run for a minute or two and then I respond to that. But I didn't wake up. I think very few people wake up in the morning and say, I want to be a political YouTuber. You sort of fall into these things. You start one, you try with something, it doesn't really work. You try something else, that works for a bit, then it falls apart and you try something else. But I was very lucky because my channel was probably one of the only ones talking about Brexit from the other side on YouTube. So there was a lot of stuff, being uploaded onto YouTube, but there were kind of clips of James O'Brien and stuff. But there wasn't really anyone, or there were very few people talking about Brexit at the time. And so I found a niche, and then the niche sort of grew for political reasons. Because if Brexit had gone the other way, you probably wouldn't be hearing from me. No, I'd still be responding to things in British politics. And people ask me, why why is an Irish guy talking about British politics? Because I always found it fascinating, because when I grew up as a kid in Ireland, we sort of were, rightly or wrongly, we got this belief, that, well, the politicians are all the same. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, they're not all that different. And people vote for Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael out of tradition. Well, my family always voted this way, so I'm going to vote this way. And it was quite boring. Now, Irish politics is not boring, but as someone viewing it back in the early 1990s, late 1980s, early 1990s, I found it quite boring. There were moments where it became exciting, but then that was in the 90s, before YouTube and before the internet. So my interest peaked somewhat, and then I realized I prefer British politics, because there was a clear divide between Labour and the Tories. It was not like what I perceived politics in Ireland, which is, I think it's completely wrong now. If you look at what's happening in Irish politics, for example, Sinn Féin is very different to the other mainstream parties. And politics in Ireland is very interesting at the moment, and I should do more on it, because people like to hear, especially the DUP. Northern Ireland, people like to hear what the DUP are up to, what shenanigans they're up to. Okay, let's move on to Danger Moo. Danger Moo asks, who are your political heroes, and why do you think they have been good politicians? That's an interesting question. So, Tony Benn, I really liked Tony Benn. So I and Tony Benn would, of course, disagree when it came to Brexit, it came to the European Union. Sadly, he died before the referendum. I think he died in 2012, 2013. But Tony Benn was an old school Labour politician, very much on the left, a socialist. And I think, with the exception of Brexit, I think he has some very good ideas, and he would have made a great minister, I think, in politics. But so Tony Benn would be one. Other great politicians. When I think of that, I think maybe successful politicians instead of great, like Barack Obama is an easy one to go to. Bill Clinton maybe as well. Bill Clinton was very good at realizing, okay, what you do is in the primaries you move to the left, and then in the election you move to the center. Barack Obama's message of hope, I think, was really good, although I think he failed in many ways when there was a chance to push through reforms to healthcare. And then Mo Mowlam was a great Northern Ireland Secretary of State, a wonderful person as well. So that was she was a good role model. We don't see many of them today, unfortunately. People like that. We're generally talking about people in the past. Billary. Now, I'm not saying I agree with Bill Clinton's policies, but I think he was a clever politician. I'm not going to say that he was a good guy. Is the rumor that Sammy has a love bite tattoo? Oh God! So Sammy Wilson, of course, the DUP MP, who famously went nude for some reason. Don't want to know the reason. I don't want to see the image again. Okay. We have a question from Big K Dog, who says, who is Anne Whitcomb? Anne Whitcomb is an old friend of mine. No, Anne Whitcomb is somebody who used to be a member of the Conservative Party, became a Brexit Party MEP because she's a crazy person, and now is a member of Reform UK. She didn't win a seat, unfortunately for Anne, but she still gets interviewed from time to time, even on Times Radio, for her opinions on everything from the Middle Ages to to Brexit. Very arrogant. But one of the worst things about people like Anne Whitcomb is that she's ignorant, but she's arrogant about her ignorance. She doesn't understand something, but that doesn't stop her from talking about it. And most people would be embarrassed if they didn't understand something and then were asked to talk about it. Most reasonable people would say, look, I'm not going to talk about that because I don't. This is one of the reasons I don't generally talk about American politics, because as soon as I do, I put my foot in my mouth and I say, well, the Senate can do this, or, the Congress can do that. And then people are like in the comments, no, that's not true. What the hell are you talking about? So I try to avoid talking about US politics because my knowledge is extremely limited. If I am responding to something, it's because somebody has asked, or they're asking for an opinion on will Trump win the election or something like that. Hopefully he won't. So Anne Whitcomb is an interesting individual, but Anne Whitcomb is a typical I know everything Looney Tunes, yes. And you're wrong. I know, and I won't provide evidence to back that up. I'll just say I know and you're wrong. Reagan Elite says, thank you so much for that question, Reagan Elite, and do check out Reagan Elite's YouTube channel. Why haven't you done a UBI live stream? That's true. Slap on the wrist for that. And can you explain to new viewers what it is and why it's an important decision? So UBI is a universal basic income. The idea that we would, the state would give people something like £1,000 a month, or €1,000 a month, or $1,000 a month, from the age of 18 until the end of your life. You'd be like, what the hell is that? Why haven't I heard about it before? You haven't heard about it before because many people don't want to talk about it. So the idea would be that it would create a floor that people would not fall below. So you would eliminate poverty overnight, because everyone would have, for example, £1,000 in the UK, £1,000 a month for the rest of your life. Now, there's no strings attached. It's not means tested. It's universal, so everyone would get it. Now, people would say, well, if you're giving rich people £1,000, isn't that a waste of money? Well, it's actually, you wouldn't have a huge bureaucracy behind it. Do you have a bank account? Do you have a bank account? Here's the £1,000 every month to your bank account. That's it. Are you a citizen? You have this money. Are you aged over 18? You have this money. That's it. That's really the only requirement. Rich people could give it away. They could donate it to charity. But the cost of actually means testing it would be more expensive than just giving it to everyone. So it makes more sense just to give it to everyone. Because, you need a bureaucracy, you need staff, you need people checking, you need to take some people on it or off it. Some people may be on it for too long, they'd have to be removed. So it's like, so remove the bureaucracy and just give it to everyone. It's cheaper. But also it removes the stigma of any sort of benefits. Now, I don't believe there should be any stigma connected to benefits, but in the world we live in, people, many times people are afraid to claim benefits because they think, oh, I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm not entitled to it. And once again, the language is completely wrong. Benefits, they should be called entitlements. But a UBI would remove all of that because everyone would get it. So there'd be no stigma, and I don't like that term, but there would be no stigma attached to receiving a UBI. It would eliminate poverty. It would eliminate homelessness because many people are not able to pay their rent. But if you had received £1,000 a month, now people will say, well, how could you afford that? Well, there are many ways. You could have a wealth tax. You could have a transaction tax. So, for example, every time transactions are made online, and we're not just talking about buying something off Amazon, we're talking about business transactions. Every time a transaction takes place, you could have a small tax on that. That could go to funding a UBI. But also, when we talk about cost, notice it's not described as an investment. And that's what it would be. It would be an investment in ordinary people. So if you give people £1,000, ordinary people, what do? They spend it in the local economy. They go and buy a coffee, or they buy clothes, or they upgrade, their home maybe, or they start a small business. If somebody would like to start, a fish and chip van, what's holding them back at the moment? Well, there's a huge risk. What if I have to quit my job, I have to buy a van, I have to invest in that, I have to get a loan from the bank to do all of these things. Well, if you had a UBI and the chip van business failed, well, then you would be still okay. Well, if you run the risk of starting a business and quitting your job and getting into debt and it fails, then you're up, whatever creek without a paddle. So at least with a UBI, you'd have something to fall back on. Or you could put some money aside every month and say, look, I'm going to put 500 quid aside every month to buy a van, or to do some advertising, or to start the business. And then, of course, if it's progressing, you can employ people. Somebody did a calculation for 40.5 million, sorry, by 1,000 is 40 billion. I don't think you'd have 40 million people who would be able to, maybe that's true. It would be a lot of money, 40 billion per month. Or is my arithmetic up to that? Or would it be 4 billion? 4 billion a month, I think might be. Maybe somebody else can do that. I'm not going to open a calculator now. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So I'm a huge supporter of UBI. I think it should be there. Remember, if you want Max to read it out, comment, best ways to send a super chat. Thank you so much, Killer, for that reminder. Joseph OM asks me, how did you develop your political opinions? So that's a very good question. So this may come as a bit of a shock to people, but I used to be a bit more conservative when I was younger. Normally, you start off as a communist, then you become a fascist later in life. No. No, I was a bit more conservative when I was growing up. Maybe it was family background or something, but now I'm much more to the left, as you know. But I think what formed my political opinions was looking at how politics influences people's lives, how it impacts people's lives, and how politicians will use scapegoats. Max was a Tory. Max is a Tory. No, not a Tory, but no, I shouldn't have said anything. That's going to be clipped now. But I just looked at how politicians will use scapegoats, like, for example, single mothers or immigrants or the poorest in society, people on benefits, and use them as a tool to convince people those are your enemies. And I sort of fell into that trap when I was younger. I'm talking about when I was in my 20s. And I believed it. I was like, oh yeah, maybe the problem is single mothers. Maybe the problem is people on benefits. Maybe the government should force people. And I feel sick thinking about that now, because I was completely fooled. It was the wrong way to think. It was the wrong way to approach politics. The government have the levers of power. The poorest in society have no one represented them. They have no influence. They have no money. They have no power. So when politicians say the immigrants are the problem or people on benefits are the problem, you need to take a step back and say, why are they saying this? These people have no influence. These people have no power. Is it the people who are in power have the influence? Maybe they are responsible, instead of looking for a scapegoat. And once you start thinking about it in that way, then everything else falls apart. So when you hear about, well, the Channel crossing, there's all these immigrants coming in and driving up house prices and stuff, then you have to ask, okay, is this true? And what is the reason? What is the motivation behind this? Well, who is responsible for housing? Is it the immigrants or is it the government? Well, the government can decide how many houses are built. They can give councils targets for social housing. They can give them money. And then if they build enough social housing, then there won't be a problem. So instead of actually trying to solve the problem, they will point the finger at the poorest in society. Have you seen Alien Romulus? I have an alien tissue. You can't really see it here. Let me... Alien eggs in a little egg box, egg carton. I haven't seen the movie yet. I want to see it. I heard some mixed reviews about it, so I'm going to go see it tomorrow night, and then tomorrow night or something. So I do want to see it as soon as possible. Somebody's asked, is Longford real? No, it only exists in the minds of people. It's just a concept. So how did I develop my political opinions? Mainly exposure to other positions and them being challenged. That's, I think, if you don't feel, if your political positions are not being challenged, then that's a problem. And as soon as they start to be challenged and you're not able to respond like you could before, then it's probably a good idea to change your mind on things. From Weezer's The Blue Album says, do you think progressive politics in England will fare best inside or outside the Labour Party? That's a very difficult question. It's a very good question, a very difficult one. I was of the mind that coming into in the next by-elections, you're probably going to see progressive parties step forward and say, look, are you happy with Labour? Maybe we could challenge Labour. we could try and push Labour in a particular direction. Because some people have said, look, the way to achieve progressive policies is by working within the Labour Party. Others are saying by working outside, by challenging. And I think if we look at someone like Farage and UKIP, and then after the Brexit Party and Reform, they're very successful at convincing the Conservatives to move in a particular direction. It's basically the tail wagging the dog when it comes to Farage and the Tories. So if you could emulate that, then you'd be able to push the Labour Party in a particular direction. And how did Farage succeed? Well, by saying that the Conservatives in the day were not doing anything about immigration. Like, they need to talk more about immigration. We're the party that will deal with immigration. So a progressive party on the outside could say, look, Labour are doing nothing about poverty, or they're doing nothing about reforming, whatever issue. Investing more in the NHS, hiring more workers, improving working conditions, improving quality of life of people. So any political party could say that on the left and say, we will provide an alternative. And if people are upset with the Labour government, then they're likely to vote for those other parties. Because remember, a lot of people lent their vote in this year to Labour in order to kick the Tories out. So those people are not Labour supporters, they're just anti-Tory. And if they feel that the new government is not doing enough, then they will go somewhere else. And we would prefer them to go to a progressive party than back to the Tories. So I think at the moment, it makes more sense to influence the Labour Party from the outside than the inside, because Starmer has an iron grip. He has a massive majority. So, and we've seen recently what happens if you rebel. So it's going to be very difficult to work within the Labour Party, I think, unless you have a massive block of MPs, a massive rebellion that could form. Ribby says, if Labour managed to throw the economy over their term, to grow the economy over their term at a greater percentage than the last 14 years, do you think this would sway right-wing voters to be more open to a centrist Labour Party in a sense of being more fiscally responsible than the historic Tory lie? I think if people, it's not so much about right-wing voters, I think it's about ordinary people. If they see things are improving, they will stick with Labour. So I keep saying that elections are referendums on the incumbent. So if people are happy with the incumbent party, then they'll stick with them. We saw that in the 2000s with Tony Blair, with the exception of the Iraq War. People were like, Tony Blair is doing a good job. That's what people view. That was the belief people had. Whether he was or not is another issue. But people were happy with the current government, so they voted for Labour again. And Labour will succeed. So they may lose part of their majority. I still think at the next election they'll hold on to a majority. But they have to convince people that they're doing a good job. And if they're able to do that, then they will remain in power. I don't know if Keir Starmer will remain in power, though, because, we're seeing a lot of problems at the moment for the Labour government. And they're saying, the problem was the 14 years of Tory rule. So you can use that excuse for a while, but it will eventually run out. Even if it's true, the rhetoric will run out in a sense. So the excuse will no longer have an impact. So you're going to have to start doing stuff. So as Ribby says, will you be able to convince people to vote for a Labour government? Yes, if the Labour government is able to show, look, we have achieved stuff. From the Fez Man, who says, what party or MP would be the top of your list to interview? I would love to interview Stephen Flynn from the SNP. I would love to interview him. From the Conservatives, is there anyone? I don't know. James Cleverly, maybe. Not because I like him, but just maybe interesting to interview him. Lee Anderson, of course, from Reform. And Ed Davies from the Liberal Democrats, maybe. And from Labour, of course, Clive, I was going to say Clive Owen. No, Clive, what's his name? The Labour MP who was in the military, wasn't it? Clive. Damn it, I forget his name already. He's a really good guy. Isn't it great? I want to interview him, but I don't remember his name. That's pretty bad. Clive Lewis. Thank you so much, Casper. Clive Lewis, yes. Clive Lewis is a good guy. I'd like to interview him. So I'd interview people from parties I don't agree with, just because it'd be interesting, but also people I do agree with because it'd be interesting. Next question is from AN98 is, who is worse, Lee Anderson or Sir Ron? See, Sir Ron donates to the Conservative Party, so he has more influence. So maybe Lee Anderson before, but Lee Anderson has no influence over the Conservative Party and a future Conservative government, while Sir Ron donates a lot of money to the Tories, so he has more power. Priti Patel, maybe, no, I'm not sure about Priti Patel. I'm not sure I'd like to interview her. What is next? That's an interesting question. I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but Jeff asks, what's next? As I said at the beginning, I'd like to do some more live streams with people. So interviewing people for the live streams. So that would be interesting. People, other YouTubers, maybe No Justice or Reagan Elite, for example, or maybe Davey from Scotland. Indie Truck Davey would be interesting to have on again. So I did these in the past. And then I think we had technical problems, we had some issues. And then eventually I said, look, I'll just do them on my own or do an interview. But I think a live stream is a bit more interesting than an interview. Next question is from, and we're getting close to the end, so I have to speed it up a bit. Frankie Seward says, can you talk about when you think Irish reunification is likely to happen? I've been asked this question before, and my response is pretty much always the same. Irish reunification is already happening. So that's sounds like a bit of a dodge. What I mean by that is, since the Good Friday Agreement, we've seen a lot of progress towards a united Ireland. And I don't think it's going to be the case that people will wake up, one morning and say, oh, now we have a united Ireland. It's not going to be like that. It's a drip process. It's a gradual changing process. So, and I think that began with the Good Friday Agreement. We saw cross-border institutions. We're seeing, for example, railway lines being developed. We're seeing, for example, I believe students in Northern Ireland have access to the Erasmus scheme, which students in Great Britain don't have. So, this is funded by the Irish government, I believe. So, and the Irish government also donated a huge amount of money to universities in Northern Ireland. So there is, when will it actually happen? When people will wake up and say, now we're in a united Ireland? I think it could be 10 years from now. I don't think it's going to happen anytime sooner, because it requires a number of steps to have taken place. It will happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. I just think it's a matter of when, not if. But the steps that need to take place is, I think you need to see a Sinn Féin government in Dublin. You need to see Sinn Féin in charge in Northern Ireland. You need to see more progress. Brexit is both a catalyst and a bit of a extinguisher for united Ireland, in the sense that Brexit under the Tories resulted in Northern Ireland moving further and further away from Great Britain, the barriers to trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But now that Labour are in charge and they want to have a better relationship with the European Union, this could bring down some of the barriers between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So, for example, if, and I don't see that happening, but for the sake of argument, if Great Britain joined the single market, there would be no Irish sea border. Now, that could take away some of that would eliminate some of the arguments for a united Ireland. I'm not saying it would eliminate a united Ireland, but it would take away some of the arguments in favour of one, which would slow down the process. But it will happen. So it's when people ask me, when is it going to happen? It's difficult to answer that question, because so many things have to happen beforehand. They have to happen at the right time. It will happen, but I think somewhere within the next 10 years. I know people have been saying that for a long time, but if Labour are able to undo some of the worst of Brexit, it will slow down the process. But then what will happen is Labour will be kicked out, and then the Tories will be probably back in. And then, of course, they're going to take a more hardline approach with Brexit. So And unionists in Northern Ireland are more open to the idea, and unionists, ordinary people, the voters, not the politicians. So, it's taking time for the politicians to take their head out of the sand. If unionist politicians were a bit more pragmatic, then we would see a United Ireland much sooner. So they're trying to drag it out as long as possible. Some of them know that it's going to happen. Some of them are living in a fantasy world. QA Library says, Max, make a list and I'll go and get them. Okay, I will. So I'll make a list and I'll send it on to you. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, QA Library. You've been sticking with me for so long. From the very beginning, QA Library is great. We used to work in the NHS and gave me a lot of insights into what was happening there. David McGuinness, thank you so much, David. I'm up for a chat again, Max. That'd be great. It'd be great to have you on again. Okay, we're getting a bit close to the end, so better speed this up because I still have a good few questions to answer. Any interest in talking about Irish politics? There are some oddballs there as well in the South, says to learn forever. Yes, I need to talk more about Irish politics, and there were some interesting clips, especially regarding the rioting that was taking place. We've seen some spill over into Dublin as well, and that needs to be called out. And I think there's been a bit of a breakdown in law and order in Dublin in particular, which is feeding into the right-wing narratives, which is concerning. So that needs to be called out. But there are issues like housing and the healthcare system that need to be focused on. And once again, many politicians are filling their pockets before they go out the door, and that's a massive problem. Are you left or right? Says Sean. I'm left-wing. I said at the beginning I was maybe a bit more conservative in the past, but no, fully left-wing now. The eternal question, Longford, says Roisin. I keep saying Longford is a state of mind. Why is Longford, says Casper, the same thing? It's not a question. It's a rhetorical question. From Conservator, thank you so much, Conservator, another one who has been with me for a long time. Just love the vibrant, positive energy of the Harris-Waltz campaign. Have you had a time to watch the DNC speeches of Michelle and Barack Obama and Tim Walz? If not, you should absolutely should. And if yes, what did you think of that? I just saw some little clips of what Obama was saying, and Obama is like I don't know, like a founding father or something in the Democratic Party. He's somebody who holds a huge amount of sway, and it's great to hear him speak. It would be great if he could come back and run again. I think he'd be a great president. He had his shortcomings, for example, when it came to healthcare in particular. But I really hope that these speeches sway enough people to come out and vote for the Democrats. One thing is about convincing people, so-called independents who are sitting on the fence. Another thing, of course, is your base. You need to get your base to come out. Donald Trump is very good at convincing his base to come out and vote, but the Democrats, not so much. Another question, sorry. Does Putin have a doppelganger? He has more than one. You should see some of them. They look some of them almost look like Charlie Mullins, from Pimlico Plumbers. That guy with the weird eyebrows and the Turkish teeth. So let's move on to some more fun stuff before we finish. From the Muppet Features, how did they get the figs into the fig rolls? Well, how am I supposed to know that? Do they start with the fig and then they put the roll around it? Or do they start with the roll and then they inject the fig into it? Or do they plant a little seed of a fig and then it grows? Coincidentally, there is a fig tree next to my house, and over the last number of weeks we've been picking the figs. They're really nice. From Darren Midwinter says, what are your thoughts on pineapple on pizza? No, it's a sin. There are a number of things that you must not do in Italy. You must never put pineapple on pizza. Another thing is you should never drink cappuccino after a certain time. So, you can do it. It'd be a bit frowned upon. But, you never have cappuccino with pizza. You never have cappuccino with a sandwich. You never have cappuccino goes with pastry. In the morning, for example, a croissant or some sort of pastry, a cake. That's when you have cappuccino. So you have coffee in the early morning to get you going, and then later in the morning you have cappuccino, and then that's it. You don't have it at 2 o'clock or 5 o'clock or in the evening. Okay. Pizza, no pineapple. Lasagna, not with chips. I love lasagna with chips, but when I was in Ireland, that's what I had have. But in Italy, no. And pasta carbonara is not with cream. If you mention it to Italians, they lose their minds. And also spaghetti in a can and pasta shapes in a can, that really riles them up. From Killer, there's an eating challenge in London's Brick Lane. It's eat the hottest curry known to man. Would you do it? Yes, I would. I love hot food. I love Indian food. I love curries. Many years ago, so in Italy, the curries and stuff like this is toned down for the population. Like, for example, Chinese food in Europe is very different to Chinese food in China. So it's westernized or whatever. And in Italy, if you go into an Indian restaurant, the curries or the spicy food is not that spicy. It's, some of it is, but it's not that spicy. So what I did was I had a vindaloo here, and then I went back to Ireland on holiday, and I was like, I want to have a vindaloo in Ireland, a bit more spicy. And I asked them for a vindaloo, and my mouth was burning. I almost couldn't finish it. We have a question from Tiny Demolition Lover, who says, if you were to write a book, what would it be about? Hope it's not glow sticks, not Star Wars. I actually had thought about doing a book on Brexit, the mentality of Brexit, like what caused people to vote for Brexit. Would it happen again in the future? So I may revisit that. So I noticed that Brexit has sort of fallen out of favor with people. Not many. There was probably a time to write the book a few years ago, but that's sort of, maybe that ship has sailed. So I might look into something else. I'm also interested in fantasy and science fiction, so maybe I could try and do something with that as well. But politics, maybe something about Brexit, but we'll have to wait and see. Can I get some Heinz tomato ketchup for my pasta? There are some videos online of people doing that, and Italians going crazy. Do you want to get kicked out of the restaurant, Magic? And maybe arrested? Thanks for that. Yeah, so no, that's a big no-no. Let me just make sure I didn't... David, so David sent me that as well. Okay, next question is from Lectures from Leeds, says, what is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is 42. Isn't it 42 or 72? I think it's 42. Try and be the best person you can. Try and live every day as if it's your last. Maybe, try and... I think, life is a gift and it can be taken away and at any stage. And I try not to argue with people, people I care about. People on Talk TV I don't really care about. But try not to argue with people. Try not to hold grudges. I think a grudge is time lost that we can't have back. Try not to regret things. If you say, I should have done this or I should have done that, don't let it linger. Just move on from it. Learn from it if you can. Sometimes I speak to my dad and he says, I should have done this, I should have done that when I was younger. And I said, look, you can't change the past. What we can try and do is change the future. Try and learn from these things and avoid them in the future. But anyway. Killer says, I adore your amazing wife, but how good is she at throwing arm and aim? Well, I don't have any black eyes yet, so... we have a question from Misty Hill. How many tubes does it take to go around the underground? 200. I don't know. I have no idea. I was on the underground about, was it a year ago when I was in London? Great way of traveling around London. Very good. It's a bit intimidating when you look at the map. You go, oh my goodness, how is anyone supposed to understand that? But I was using Google with me as well. So Google was like, take this underground, change here. So, that was really handy. Although you should be able to do it without Google as well, Google Maps. Dumbelina says, this is very well, but can you hit your doubles? Can you hit your doubles? I'm not sure what that means. Apologies. I should have done some research into some of these questions. Can you hit your doubles? Next question from Ricardo is, what exactly is scampi? I don't know if that's a trick question. Scampi is like shrimp, large shrimp. Italians normally have them fried or in risotto, I think, or with pasta as well. 180 and is a dart score. Sorry, doubles. Can I hit doubles? No, I don't think so. 180. No, don't think that's. Maybe if I was really lucky. Isn't darts the only sport where you need, like, the bigger the beer belly, the better the player? It's like if you're watching darts and there's a really thin, slim guy comes in and you go, he's not going to do very well. And then you see a guy with a huge beer belly and you're like, yeah, he's going to win this. They used to say never eat at a restaurant where the chef is skinny. Maybe it's true. Room tour and specs. Actually, that's an interesting video to do. So I will see about I need to do some tidying up here. So when I have it tidied up and put around a few more knickknacks, I'll do a video. I'll do a video where I show you the room so you can get an idea of what it looks like in here. You just see what's behind me at the moment. And there isn't all that much in front, but I will do a bit of tidying up, and then I'll do a video of the room and then the computer I use and stuff like that. So people are interested in, if there's anything interesting for, you say, oh, can you tell me about your day, or can you do a video on your day? I don't know if people are interested in these things. Some people are. I just don't want to come across as obnoxious or anything like that. For me, it's like my day is not all that interesting, but if somebody is interested in hearing it or thinks it would be interesting, then I'll do something about that. Jamie, great to see you once again on the stream. Thank you so much for that super chat. Live every day like it's your last, but pay your bills just in case. Yes. Yeah, don't go overboard. That's good advice. Live every day like it's your last, but remember to pay your bills. We just have two more questions, so I'll just finish on these two. So we have from QA Library says, how did the mankini become a running joke? This is one of these things, I don't remember where it all started. I think we were talking about ways to improve the channel, and somebody said, oh, why don't you wear a mankini? And then I had to Google mankini. I was like, do you want to end the channel? So I appear in a mankini. Anyone who doesn't know what a mankini is, you can either Google it and then need to remove your eyes or something. Or if you've seen the Borat movie, he was wearing a mankini. So it's a good way to shut down the channel, I think, a mankini. But I think it was about when we had been discussing, the moderators and admins had been talking about ways to improve the... Max wears mankini, gets a ban, yes. Ways to improve the channel. I don't think that's one way to do it. And our final question tonight is from Greg, who says, who is your favorite Beatle? My favorite Beatle would be Paul McCartney. So I would normally say my favorite Beatle would be John Lennon, but then John Lennon went a bit downhill with Yoko Ono. So Paul is the best, or maybe so there was Paul, John, Ringo. Oh my God, George Harrison. George was also a really good guy, but I don't know that much about George. How did I forget George Harrison? But Paul is probably my favorite. So Ringo, turned out Ringo was a Brexiteer. Can you imagine? Isn't he a Brexiteer? I think he is a Brexiteer, so that's a no-no. But Paul, yeah, Paul is my favorite Beatle. I have pics of Max's Mankini. Okay, now I know who to ban. So guys, I want to say thank you so much for coming on tonight. Thank you for listening to me ranting and raving for a long time there, trying to answer questions. Thanks to everyone who sent in their question. Apologies if I haven't been able to respond to all of the questions, or I haven't been able to answer them to the best of my ability, to the best, to your satisfaction. I'll do my best. And so got some great feedback. Thank you so much from everyone. Thanks to everyone who sent a super chat as well. Thank you so much for that. We're almost at the end. I don't have a one for the road. I'll just say that going forward, I'm going to use this feedback to help improve the channel somewhat, maybe do some more live streams with some of your favorite other YouTubers. And of course, on Twitter, if you're on Twitter, you can follow me there. And if you want me to do an interview with somebody or have somebody on the live stream, let me know. Just tag me on something or send me a message, and I'll see about doing that. So yeah, it's something that'd be interesting for people to hear, not just me talking, but also some experts. So thank you so much to everyone. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. As always, stay safe, take care, and good night.